We are live.
Welcome to the Academic Standards Meeting. It is June 2nd. And tonight we are having a discussion about the mathematics curriculum. And our speaker is Dr. Julie Eastwood, Curriculum Coordinator.
Okay. There we go. So I'm just going to go through and talk about elementary, middle school, and then high school math, and highlight a few key features in each level. So I'll start with our elementary mathematics, and I have it listed K to 5 because the standards for PA Core have make a shift in 6th grade to 6, 7, 8. So we're talking K to 5 first, and then I'll group 6th grade with middle school. But we currently are aligned to the PA Core standards. We are in our 6th year of using the Envision math program, which came on board before. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That happened.
They came on, I guess this is the 5th year, starting the 6th year. Yes. That came on board before the PA Core standards, but it has done a decent job helping us meet the PA Core standards. It was a little bit ahead of its time, and we have added supplemental resources to help teachers fill in gaps that may occur, and honestly, there's gaps in any math program that you look for. We give district tests in grades 3 to 5. We give both a multiple choice test and then also a performance task at the end of every marking period for all students. And in grade 2, we do a performance task only. We didn't feel it was appropriate, but we have 7th graders filling in roles. So we start that in 3rd grade, and all of the data on the district's tests, along with any reports that we want to run, are in performance trackers so that we can start tracking, so we can track where our strengths are and those areas that we need to focus more instruction on.
So can you just give an example of something you might have found in the data that you learned?
I'm gonna get to that, but one thing that I've noticed is fractions always seem to be a challenge, which is not unusual in math education, that fractions would be a challenge, but interestingly, fraction knowledge is a gatekeeper to success in algebra. So we're continually working on, mostly via the math specialist, and as we roll out more PLCs, talking about best instructional practices for teaching fractions. One of the things that we stress a lot with fractions, an easy example is when you're comparing fractions, not to use the cross multiplication, because it's
How we grew up?
Yeah, right. It's quick, but it doesn't give kids that flexibility in thinking. Part of comparing fractions is to compare fractions, but part of it is to learn how to make common denominators, which you need when you add and subtract fractions. So when we take that skill out of our instruction, we're actually have to add it in when we teach adding and subtraction fractions. So we're actually, in some odd way, adding to the curriculum because we're teaching gimmicks so that we then have to untrain. No, we do not. A performance task is an open-ended question that's usually designed to take students probably 15 to 20 minutes to complete. It's scored on a rubric. We based our rubrics off of the Pennsylvania PSSA rubric so that teachers and kids start getting some familiarity with looking at how they're going to be scored on PSSA. I would say 2 years ago, we revised them as we shifted into PA Core, and one of my goals is to get some more anchor papers so that teachers can see and students can see this is what an advanced looks like, this is what a proficient looks like, because there's a lot to be learned for students to see, this is what a complete answer would look like. It gives them something to model from and learn from and see the proper vocabulary and all of that.
So there's a district performance task every marking period?
Correct. Yep. And a district multiple choice.
Right. That I remember.
That you we try to keep the multiple choice down to about 20 questions so that students are able to complete it in one class period. There was a couple grade levels where we got a little overzealous and it was taking kids a little too long, and certainly don't want to use another day of instruction. We certainly don't want kids having to stay in for recess or do anything like that to finish a test. So these are the domains that we cover in K-5 mathematics. Counting and cardinality is really just, it's just a kindergarten domain, and it really is just about counting, about subitizing, which is like looking, the perfect example is looking at a dice, and like we all know right away when we look at it, that's 5, that's 3, that's 6. That's actually a really, that's actually a very important math skill that kids use with base 10 as they get into base 10 and using 10 streams, and it's actually an important elementary skill. And then numbers in base 10 in fractions starts in grade 3. It goes grades 3 to 5. Fractions are introduced in 2nd grade, but it's more of a through an area model than concrete fraction instruction. So in grade 6, just this past year, we have implemented, go ahead.
Can I ask you a question about K-5?
Sure.
And I'm drawing from memory, and it was a long time ago when this was said to me, so people, when they were coming to us about the Common Core and not liking it, I feel like there were a lot of math examples where they were like, it's crazy math, I can't do the math at the elementary level, at least that's how I understood it. Can you just talk to that at all?
Sure.
Or do you know what I'm talking about?
I know.
Now you're guessing you explain it, I won't be able to explain it, but just remember, it stuck in my brain that it was a math-focused thing.
And there's so many things out on Facebook and out on social media about the crazy examples. And I will say, if you look at the standards themselves, which is the Common Core standards are based, the PA Core standards are based off the Common Core standards. If you look at the standards themselves, there is nothing crazy in those standards. It doesn't tell me as a teacher how to teach, it tells me what I should teach.
Right.
So those crazy examples that you see all over social media are exactly that, crazy examples. The Common Core standards are very clear on when students should master basic facts. There is not a, kids don't need to know basic facts. I can tell you in kindergarten, kids need to know their facts. Computation, addition, and subtraction to 5. By 1st grade, they need to know to 10. 2nd grade, it is, I believe, fluency up to 100. Fluency meaning using algorithms that help them quickly find an answer or have strategies that are efficient. And it just goes from there. So I'm a little bit of a math geek, so I could tell you when all the fluencies are, but I'm sure you don't want to hear. But so kids knowing their facts, absolutely. Standard, what we consider standard algorithms, absolutely. The Common Core standards do not say that kids should know standard algorithms. They say that students should have fluency with different algorithms. And part of it is some of the silly stuff you see where, you teach kids to add 32 plus 15 and you teach them to add like the 30 plus the 10. Yes, and that kind of stuff actually has great mathematical value. It's actually the beginning of Margaret will tell you, it's the beginning of the distributive property and learning to break numbers apart. And it's crucial for kids to have that nimble flexibility in their brain to see, 15 as 10 and 5 or 8 and 7 or 14 and 1. So it's teaching kids to break those numbers apart, but in the end, kids need to be fluent in all of the basic operations.
Okay.
So the crazy examples that you see are crazy examples. I usually laugh when I see them.
Okay. So in your opinion, not only what's being expected, but what's being tested of what's being expected falls within the realm of being reasonable in a Council Rock education?
On our district test?
Yes.
Yes.
Or whatever the Common Core, the
PSSA
and stuff like that. We don't find
significant.
significant conflict.
I don't have huge flags that go up in my head.
Not that there's something you wouldn't like to change, but
there's
yeah.
Things I would absolutely like to change, but I don't feel like
we should throw the whole Common Core out for it.
No, I'm a huge proponent of Common Core standards, because if you look at just the standards, take away all the policy, take away all the emotions, take away all the wacky examples, most of the standards are really good.
Yeah, I think it's the testing of the standards.
It's the test,
Is what
correct.
people start to get crazy about, but, okay, thank you, that's helpful.
Julie, would you agree, though, that a lot of the craziness that we've heard actually was out before the PA core standards came?
Correct.
People started talking about new math and reciting some of those examples. So I don't even think that whole conversation tied directly to Common
No.
Core, PA core. It started long before.
Well, I think it started with PA, or with Common Core,
Yeah.
and PA just got,
I didn't get a lot of feedback this year.
Yeah, actually, I was just having that thought, that like all of a sudden it seems to have subsided, but I think in part it is an interesting thing that I think that you see a lot of these things on social media and whatever, like, look at this crazy test, and then locally, maybe people look at it and then they try to make some kind of connection to what is happening here, but it really, the mitigating event was something that's outside of us.
Although, didn't Robert tell us, did we have more kids opt out than usual this year?
We did,
But I don't know that that's,
but
I don't know, I don't know what the correlation is either, but it just,
yeah, that was a statewide, it was a regional trend, it was a statewide trend, and it was a national trend.
no, I'm not saying we're different than anybody else, but there
Yeah.
must still be an undercurrent of people who
but
are,
I'm not
unhappy
actually
with
even
something.
sure that that's connected, because I feel like to some degree opt-out is more like the protest. There's
Well,
the
yeah, that's
protest
what I'm
for testing, I don't know that it's
specific to this, yeah.
Yeah.
and I can
I
also
don't
say you
take
probably
them.
have heard less feedback this year, because we've also been in this for 2 years now, so
It's not new
teachers
anymore.
and students are feeling more comfortable.
It's the way it is when they get there, yeah.
It's the way it is, and so now there's kids moving through grade levels where they've, it's not new language, it's not new anymore. It's kind of the way we do business, and it's making more sense.
And the teachers are more comfortable with it.
Absolutely, yeah.
I also have a question on the slide.
Sure.
Geometry is an interesting topic here, and it's present in SAT and ACTs.
Mhm.
Is there any reason why geometry is not introduced earlier? And the way I know it's introduced in sixth grade, just a very small component.
Actually, geometry starts back in first grade,
I mean, in the
kindergarten, actually.
in full swing. I think in the sixth grade, I remember it was a sort of at the end of the sixth grade where the geometry is being introduced.
I guess it depends what you call geometry. I mean, the geometry of identifying shapes back in preschool is the beginning of geometry.
Mhm.
Surface area, volume, those kind of topics in geometry do start in sixth grade.
Right. Calculating sines, cosines, I recall.
That's not in
It was-
elementary at all.
It wasn't elementary, it wasn't a sixth grade test.
That's a pre-algebra topic. That's not a sixth grade. We don't have pre-algebra in sixth grade. That's
So
a
it was a
seventh grade
pre-algebra.
course.
What I'm saying is they're very often it's just addressed as essentially one big class, right, during the high school. And during the early years, they just don't get enough exposure to that with calculations.
I would say that it starts in kindergarten. Geometry is in there. The formal calculations aren't developmentally
Mhm.
appropriate. But we start talking area with kids, as we tie it into, multiplication in second grade.
Right.
Where they're talking area. They don't have the formal length times width
Right.
formula, but they're starting to build that, the background knowledge they need.
It's just the idea of proofs, I mean, probably early. for
Proofs,
this.
and you know what, there's a lot of research that says that developmentally, kids cognitively aren't there yet to do that indirect proof yet.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just the
just,
elementary level.
geometry is so essential for this high stakes test that they need
Right.
to take. Is there opportunity to introduce it earlier than, a little more, I mean, I know it's not part of the testing.
I think we do, I think we introduce it at the developmental stages, and, it's in a lot of our courses. Go
Okay.
ahead, Marty.
Sorry, well, what about like the timing, like proofs, like early on? I think, well, I think that any younger kids should be able to, like, if you put a triangle, like, in a rectangle, like with the base of the triangle sharing like with the base of the rectangle, you show little kids that, like, well, that's why a triangle, like that's why there's the formula for the area of a triangle.
It's half the base times the height.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And we do that with our I need my math people here, the pattern blocks.
You're looking at me like,
Yeah.
good luck with that.
With our pattern blocks, and we do have opportunities for kids to do that.
Like, how often is that done?
In any given classroom, I can't give you an exact.
I wonder that, like, well, maybe, I'm not sure if this is what you're saying, but that, like, my experience with like, geometry in, like, the younger, like, lower grades is basically just, like, memorizing these formulas. That, like, of, like, area or the perimeter. That, like, well, I mean,
maybe the issue, it's separating out like elementary or whatever. I mean, the fact is that in 10th grade, students are taking PSATs that includes geometry, and the large majority of students in 10th grade would have no geometry.
I agree, that's.
So, I mean, so I don't know that touches, developmentally, it may not be an issue to introduce it then, but it is an interesting question. I mean, I've heard this, how long have we been talking about the sequencing of courses?
Yes.
So has been, since we've sidetracked a little bit.
That's okay.
As a department or whatever, is there any conversation?
We haven't talked
assess
about
the
moving.
sequencing?
We haven't talked about moving geometry in between algebra
Right.
1 and algebra 2.
Mhm.
Did you
And
say
actually, we have not.
Well, we did with Donna here. Donna was
Okay.
coordinator with the last time that conversation came up.
But I
I mean, I
can,
know
I
that
can
it-
tell you though that it with the Keystones, there are some districts across the county that are actually moving algebra 1, algebra 2, so that as students need to be successful in the Keystone, they're getting that review of skills
Right,
in algebra
right,
2.
to double edge. Right, because that would, if you move geometry to say 9th grade to accommodate a PSAT or ACT, then you're delaying algebra for the
When
Keystone.
you really need some
And-
basic algebra 1 skills to be successful in
Right.
a geometry class.
But I remember back when, I mean, and I guess this was when Donna was here, the IU had come in and done like a review of the math department. And that the issue of sequencing, it didn't necessarily make a recommendation, but the issue just in general of sequencing was addressed, and it's, I guess, as the state changes things for students, it's hard to know what's right. You know what I mean? Right, because making a change to accommodate, a change in curriculum to accommodate one thing can create a
It
problem with
creates a
something
problem on
else.
the other end.
And some schools do have the different sequence of geometry before
Yeah.
algebra.
Absolutely.
I think, and I'll speak, on behalf of Donna, that's why I had a conversation with when this came up, and two things came out in her research. One was the age appropriateness of it, that the more mature kids are in developmental, the easier it is for them to handle geometry. That when they do it too early in some schools, kids really struggle if they are not, they've not developed enough in terms of mathematical skills. So she liked it later for that reason. The second reason was, as it relates to the standardized testing, is depending on where you are, if you're taking your geometry in 9th grade, taking your SAT that is going to be your important one in 11th grade, then you have a gap from that testing. It may be better for your PSAT, but it may not be better for your SAT or ACT you're taking your junior year, that are the scores that, most kids count, their junior year scores. Sophomore, they're taking the PSAT, and that's, again, more like the practice test, although it helps for the national merit scholarships, it doesn't count for your application. So, and again, I'm not debating what's right, wrong, or different, but they were some of the components that had her believe that algebra 1, algebra 2, then geometry was the most appropriate sequence. And that's probably something that needs to be revisited periodically.
It's a good argument. And I've heard a similar argument saying that because the algebra 2 is such a large component of SAT, in ACT, it's more appropriate to have it in before you take SAT because it's fresh.
Mhm.
But in my experience, geometry, when it's introduced really early, children are not struggling later on when they have to actually take the class. It's spread through curriculum. It's spread through curriculum rather than a single class. It's maybe have a half a year, so it's you don't forget it. I mean, there are probably ways to structure it.
Like perhaps like if we had like geometry and then algebra 2, perhaps in algebra 2 there could be some, or maybe a little bit later, I don't know, but like there could be some review of like analytics geometry, which too is review like some of the geometrical concepts, but within like the algebra, like within algebra.
Okay, so in 6th grade, we have the Glencoe Course 1 book that we just implemented. We have switched in 6th and 7th grade, 8th grade is getting implemented next year, to doing 5 benchmark exams instead of 4. We broke it up by domain. It kind of took the pressure off of the end of the marking period for kids because they take their science, they take their social studies. Teachers feel a little stressed, kids feel a little stressed, and it just seems more appropriate to break it up into 5 benchmarks, and that seems to have gone well. It's our first year through the data, so we'll see what the end of the year brings. But the interesting thing about 6th grade is the standards change to a higher level of rigor in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. You'll see that ratio and proportions are introduced and expressions and equations come into play as a whole domain, as a whole focus in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
And do they begin full year tests in 6th grade? Where they get tested on all 5 things and a cumulative?
No, we don't really do cumulative until we get to the high school.
Okay.
And statistics and probability is brought in 6th grade, which is something new to add into that grade level. At the elementary level, we do have 8 elementary math specialists. Those math specialists split their time between offering math enrichment for students who demonstrate a very high level of aptitude for math, and then also offer math club for students who need additional support. And that could be, there's a formal program for grades 4, 5, and 6 for math support, but we've been trying to push the math support for struggling learners down into lower grades so that we can start the support earlier. I think as we do our work with professional learning communities and start talking about what kind of interventions we need to set up for students, I'm hoping that we'll find some creative ways to tap into kids' math struggles earlier rather than later.
So is math club a voluntary after school, anybody?
Math club is, there's a before school and there's usually a lunch or a recess time.
Okay.
We're kind of trying to move away from that. That certainly is not prime learning time. The problem is finding time where we can pull students to help them. And some buildings have been thinking about some different ways that could work.
Who runs the math club? Just one of the teachers?
No, the math specialist.
The math specialist.
The math specialist, yes.
Food for thought. I'd love to see that be STEM instead of just math. Don't know how your math specialists feel about that. Not that they're experts in all those other areas, but I think the idea of STEM when we already have a math club, and even if it was just.
Math club is more though for to provide remedial
Oh,
skills.
I'm sorry.
It's
like,
not.
I like math, I can do a
Right.
math club.
No.
All right,
Put in math
I
enrichment.
forgot. It's been too long, I've been out of elementary school, I can't remember.
No, math club is for those that need remedial assistance.
Okay,
Math enrichment is for kids who show a very high aptitude for math. And although they don't specifically get into science, to STEM, they do study historical mathematicians. They do look at some of the practical applications of
it's just weird,
mathematics.
with the budget struggles,
Right.
STEM in elementary is one of the things that's going to suffer. And we've got 8 math specialists and they're in the schools and math is part of STEM. And so any creative thinking that could go into helping them help us
Right.
keep the idea of STEM.
Right.
Not
We
really,
can
I
certainly-
understand their job, but if there was anything, any help they could give us at the elementary, so we would be eternally grateful, because I think, I don't want to speak for everybody on the board, but I think there's a general consensus on the board for an interest in the program, but $14 million doesn't grow all trees. So we have this constant conflict with this, And I'm by no means think the math specialists aren't already very busy. But if there is any opportunity to
I mean, we can
do
certainly
that, we
look
should
at our curriculum.
highlight their assistance in that area.
We do have it, each
I'm
grade
guessing some of
level,
them do, yeah.
each grade level has a set curriculum of topics that they need to cover. We could go back and look at that,
You guys think about it, it would just
but
be
it's not,
helpful.
it won't be hitting all
Yes,
students.
any help that your group can give us is appreciated. And if they are doing it, we certainly would want to highlight that and make sure, because that would certainly be above and beyond.
Correct.
So,
Okay.
I'm not sure if you mentioned, but do two of these folks float or do they all float?
They, more than 2 float.
What would that be based on?
It's based on numbers of math enrichment students and remedial students and the size of the building.
So at the beginning of the year, you identify where the numbers are, then you.
Pretty much they usually, at the end of the year, we look at the numbers of what percentage each building has allotted for a math specialist. So I can't say the percentages change. But I know just last year, Joy and I looked at the percentages to kind of make sure we were meeting all the needs the best that we could.
Okay.
And the math specialists also do a lot of work with helping teachers pace, giving out, sharing ideas for pedagogical knowledge of what are the best instructional practices for math.
Can I ask you a
Thanks, Howard.
question on that slide?
Sure.
When it comes to math and revision, how do you measure the results of success?
I'm going to get to that in a minute. That's my next slide. So then I want to talk a little bit about the elementary math awards, the contest that we participate in and how our students perform. One small contest that we do is the Pennsylvania Math League contest, where schools across the Commonwealth can participate in this. It's a one-day sitting, 35 questions, 30 minutes, ready, go. And the problems start out easy, they get really hard by the end. And Sol Feinstone placed number 9 in the state, Hillcrest was 12, Newtown was 13, Goodnow was number 18, and we had 2 students, one from Newtown and one from Hillcrest, who tied for 17th in the state.
wow.
So that's pretty impressive, considering that we just kind of give the contest and say, go. Because what we focus on in math enrichment for our contest is the Math Olympiad contest. And the Math Olympiad contest is a worldwide competition. Over 3,000 schools across the world participate. And this year there were 81,891 students across the world that participated, that completed all 5 contests. There was about 150 kids that signed up, but not everyone completed it. So Newtown Elementary and Sol Feinstone placed in the top 10% of all those schools, which means that they scored better than at least 2,973 schools worldwide.
That's awesome.
Crazy.
And where and how do we
We need to
community share that information with the rest of the district and with the community?
I guess I can send it to Dr. Frazier.
Super Twitter?
We also
Tweet that
had,
straight out.
I know, that's
That's amazing.
outstanding.
Yeah.
we also had Churchville, Maureen and Welsh, Goodnow, and Hillcrest score in the top 20.
That's
Score in the
amazing.
top 20%.
Amazing.
Um, And what is even more amazing is the individual students. We had 17 students who scored in the top 2% across the district. That means they scored better than 80,000 students worldwide. We had 47 students
I like it.
who were in the top 10%.
Sorry, Andy was just sharing personal information about his math ability.
And then we had an additional
That's why there's
227
math club.
students that scored in the top 50% of all the students.
That is so impressive.
And these are not atypical results. These results happen every year.
Okay, so the 17 or the 47, whichever you prefer, can we bring them to a meeting for a certificate?
Sure.
That would be stellar.
Is that a bad idea, Barbara?
Yeah.
I've heard you
Fantastic. Love it.
I mean, we did something like that 2
It's
years
global.
ago.
I don't know how many global things we even compete. I mean, we do science in the state it's great, not downing it, but I think we should do that.
That'd be fabulous. I'm sure kids would love it.
Well, you're not gonna come anymore.
Give me a date.
Things on your list.
And I will organize it.
Is
All right,
it too
we'll
late
give it
to
to
get?
Barry, he's looking at Barry. Barry, that's your job.
Is it too late to get, I mean, I know we're after the school year ends our next.
Maybe we started this, but maybe we can invite them in the September meeting or whatever.
Okay.
Dr. Eastgren.
Yes.
Okay, so I was just stunned by these results. I just feel like that it's significant that when I was in elementary school and in math enrichment, it seemed that like the majority of my classmates did not like it.
Did not like Math Olympiad?
Did not like math enrichment.
Really?
I'll ask some of my classmates, like, oh hey, do you remember learning about Pascal's triangle? And they're like, what are you talking about? And then I explain to them, like, oh, it's something we covered in math enrichment, like, oh, math enrichment. Like, I feel like that's, I wonder if it's because math is often emphasized as like a algorithmic kind of subject, as in you're given some like a method to do, like, and that's how we were taught like early on. So like, I mean, we started like a math method like in 4th grade and some like half was in 5th grade, and it's I wonder maybe like because that was like later entrance into like problem solving approaches.
Well, math enrichment, I mean, if you remember your math enrichment, it's all based on problem solving. It's not, it's not too algorithmic.
I know, but I mean, I think that might have been what, I think that's what my classmates did not like about it, because they weren't exposed to it earlier.
Well, we did move, since you've moved out of Newtown, it has moved down to 3rd grade.
Yeah.
So now we start math enrichment in 3rd grade, so we're.
Maybe we have some of you.
You're not gonna come back, we have more stuff for your math specialist. All we need is more time and more people.
So here's just a quick global look at our PSSA scores. I'm pretty sure that you've had a presentation on the PSSA, so I'm not gonna, and I'm getting you have 25-minute look, so.
I just hate the PSSAs.
But I can say that we do go through, and we do, I do go through and I do look and I do see where our areas of focus need to be. And, you can see place value comes back in at 5th grade, fractions. The hardcore computation comes in 4th and 5th grade, and so that's definitely
So when
an area.
when you're analyzing this data, are you looking for like these universal patterns of overall?
I look at the universal trends, but the principals will have teachers pull up their individual scores and look at school scores and see trends in the school. So they look at their school trends, and then I look at the big global trends.
I mean, you do see every year the scores come out, and if you were to plot them all out, there are always odd little outliers of schools where, I'm just making it up, 5th grade, consistently most of the math scores are here, and then you may find one that's super high or a little bit lower, and it's just sort of weird because, and I understand it's different cohorts and stuff, but, so I was just wondering who's looking at that, so it's
The principals definitely, and the teachers most definitely are looking through that data. And I'm still trying to dig. There's a big document that I keep hoping that the number's gonna pop out of me, but it used to be that a 50-point difference in scores is not statistically significant. So some of that explains, I haven't been able to find that number with the new scoring system. I don't want to make the assumption that it's the same. So I have the question out to the IU, and they're looking into it for me to help us, again, just make it
I
more.
just actually assumed.
I assumed, but.
I didn't do that.
So the PLC influence, professional learning community influence, definitely has come into play at the elementary, has come into play at all levels. And as we move forward and we start designing more common formative assessments that help better inform our instruction and help meet the needs of both kids that have mastered a skill and kids who still need practice with it, as we get more into the PLC process, we'll be able to focus even more on those areas of need. So that brings us to middle school math, and we have, in 7th grade, we have 2 levels. This is when we start stratifying our curriculum. And we have our honors pre-algebra and our academic 7, and then the students in the honors track typically go into honors algebra 1. Students in academic math 7 typically go to math 8. There has been a large change, as I'm sure you saw in the PSSA scores, particularly for 8th grade this year. There has been a large change in the standards that we are asking students to be proficient with in 7th and 8th grade. And part of the new textbook adoption is a way to help meet the gap. Our old textbook really didn't have the resources, the depth, all the meat that's needed to meet the rigor of the PA core standards. And that is why we have moved to a new 6, 7, 8 textbook to help better prepare our students. So I'm hoping that we'll see a nice jump in scores in, particularly in 8th grade, although we're implementing the book next year. But teachers really spent a lot of in-service time this year looking at 8th grade and where our weaknesses were and what we can do, what opportunities can we provide students to make sure that we're meeting those standards.
So academic 8 is pre-algebra.
Correct.
Has there been a change in who were, or by volume, by numbers of who were putting in honors or who were recommending to honors versus regular algebra?
Not so much. Not as of yet. I looked back over the last, as I was trying to figure out how many textbooks to order for 7th grade, because when I had to start doing my budget, kids aren't placed yet, so it's kind of a guess. And I would say historically over the last 5 to 6 years, it bounces around between right around 50% split, honors versus academic. Sometimes it's 45, 55, but it bounces around.
In 7th grade, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
And then usually that stays in 8th grade. There's usually a little bit of movement.
How about to 9th?
To 9th grade it changes because we add in the accelerated track. So typically students in honors algebra 1,
50-50?
You know what? I can't answer that honestly because I've never tracked that stat. But for the kid who honors algebra 1 isn't coming really easily to them, the accelerated track is an excellent track that still leads them to calculus at the end, which is oftentimes why decisions are made in 6th grade on where you place your child.
6 or 7 years ago, I know we were talking about this, and my impression anyway at that point was we had a large 50-50, I guess is right, large number going to honors in 7th. We had a very minor drop to go to 8th, but when we went to 9th, the kids, even though were recommended to honors, were dropping back. So
To accelerated.
To accelerated, yes,
Right,
not all the way back.
Still staying in.
But there was this perception that too many kids from honors were being passed on, even in some cases, 2 honors didn't make it in the first.
Well, parents always have the choice to.
Right, it wasn't, I don't believe it necessarily an override issue. Anyway, I think the accelerated standards and the books, it'd be interesting to see if we're gonna have a guideline to, and I believe that there was some transition work we've done between 8th and 9th grade, and kids were being better directed by the teachers to accelerated or honors. That was the discussion at that time. It was 5, 6, 7 years ago. It was a while ago.
The accelerated track is not a bad option for a kid coming out of honors algebra 1 into accelerated algebra 2. That's not a bad option. There's maybe a chapter and a half of material that's not covered.
I think it's a great option, but there were some issues there.
So what's the likelihood or the percentage of kids that start in academic math 7 and are able to get to honors algebra 1? I mean, is that too
I
big
would
a jump?
say there's not a ton of kids.
I guess my question more is if you're in academic math 7, are you pigeonholed
For the most
to
part, yeah, you are.
that track?
You are.
without doing
Kids
something
can
over the
either
course of the
choose
summer?
to make the jump to honors algebra 1. Some kids choose to take a course over the summer so that they can, they'll take geometry over the summer so they can then go to analysis because they want to be able to take calculus their senior year. So there's options, but it definitely pigeonholes you.
Yeah, and I guess I just struggle with, as I think about the strengths of our district on the special ed sides, and that area in the middle where maybe we can get better, that's a great opportunity. There was a kid coming out of 6th grade who,
Right.
could be more, but isn't now all of a sudden, I don't know the answer to it,
Yeah, and it's always a hard call because it's hard to make a choice on where your child's going to be in 12th grade and 6th grade. It's a hard choice to make.
Right, but to our credit, I mean, we've added courses in because it used to be you had no ability to get to calculus or, and
Right.
we've added in courses that have really enriched the non-honors track.
Right.
It is a pretty,
to get there though?
yeah.
That's my question, can they get,
To get there?
can they get to that same calculus place if they start that?
If they start in the academic track, they would have to take a course somewhere else. But to get to our analysis course, to have pre-calc, what is kind of it basically is a pre-calculus course as a senior in high school is not a bad thing. It's not a problem for college.
I think, though, and this is just anecdotal personal experience, if the child isn't showing supreme math skills by 6th grade, the chances, my experience with the math program in the group of parents that I went through the system with was that it's lots of kids do pretty well in elementary school. In 7th grade, a lot of kids still do pretty well. And then 8th grade hits, and then 9th grade hits, and then it's more the mental adjustment that, wait a second, my kid was an honors math student all this time, and now they can't keep the rigor because the acceleration pace, and again, this was the time my kids went through,
Right.
But I mean, you hear
is tremendous. I know 2 kids who took a summer class and then passed a test and were able to jump.
I got a stack of paper this thick on my desk of kids that I'm testing this summer.
Yeah, so
Taking
there's
courses
some,
for various
but I
reasons.
I wasn't exposed to many. If anything, the kids who start out pretty strong struggle as the academic rigor in math is highly accelerated. Again,
Yes, you could be
but the
on
reality
track.
is the math in the middle school is hard.
yeah,
And
Well,
we
even
know
if
that
it's-
even if you talk about what parents, when students need outside tutoring, it's always math. The issue is always math. And very often it's part of this disconnect of, you might have gotten hundreds on every test in elementary school, but, the teachers are evaluating other things to understand if you can meet the rigors. And then, of course, once you have multiple honors classes, keeping up. But the thing is, when my kids were younger, I don't think the district did a particularly good job always of explaining, number one, the association between math and science and how important it is to align those courses because
There's a little flexibility in that. Renee and I talk often.
I'm saying, but like originally, we were way better. Or that understanding like how your choice in 6th grade sets you on a track. So back, a long time ago when my kids were younger, the district didn't do it that well, but thanks to meetings like this and parents talking about it, I think the district works very hard. I know that it's a big component of program planning night. And so, to their credit, it makes it better, but.
that's kind of what I was saying earlier. I think more kids are getting recommended not to go from honors algebra 8, but to maybe take accelerated. Teachers are doing a better job. Parents are understanding it better. All of those components go into it. There were just more than you would have thought kids dropping out of honors in a first semester of 9th grade and then feeling like a failure. They just started high
Right,
school.
and I think we have
Back in the day.
Right.
I think
I
so. There's not nearly as many.
But increased rigor, which is where you started this conversation in middle school, will help that.
Yes.
Because you gotta get on a path because the rigor in high school in honors math isn't for everybody.
And the rigor of the academic course is going to help our keystones because the 8th grade standards in many ways are some watered down algebra concepts and in some cases not really watered down algebra concepts. So this new set of standards is going to help with that.
Great.
I want to make sure you guys have time to see everything. So I talked about that we'll be implementing the Glencoe Course 3 next school year. We also added 5 benchmark exams. We changed from 4. at the middle school. Teachers just felt that it flowed better for students, and it got rid of that crunch at the end of a marking period when kids really, I've seen it in my own kids, feel that, oh my gosh, I have all these exams. So it kind of takes that off. We have, for our honors pre-algebra, we use a Pearson book and a McDougall-Littell book in Honors Algebra 1. We still have our quarterly exams in our honors classes. Part of my work as we start our essential learning targets work for next school year is to really look at what it is that we want kids to know in each of our honors courses, and then see if there's resources that might better help meet those needs. I'm not saying there is or there isn't. I'm just saying it's something that I want to look at, is look at the resources that we provide in our honors track to see if there's some better things out there, because the textbooks that we have been around for a while. So teachers are supplementing.
I remember them, that's bad.
Teachers are supplementing a great
But they're
deal.
still classics.
They are classics.
And that doesn't change. I mean, it's
It does, but they don't, to have a little up-to-date problem solving.
great.
When it talks about, Walkmans or CD players, they may not get.
I'm just teasing.
Wow, now you're dating some folks here.
I think she took it.
I love my new book.
So in the middle school, students participate in the math count competition, and it's supported by the Society of Professional Engineers. And we always have, every year, we have an in-district competition that always seems to be hosted at Richboro Middle School. They always seem to volunteer their building.
They have desks in the auditorium.
Right. It works out nicely. So Newtown Middle was the champ this year, and so they were able to move on to the county competition, and they came in 3rd place. And we were actually able to send a young lady from Newtown Middle School to the state competition, where she placed 77.
Cool.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I kind of already talked a little bit about our PSSAs. We certainly recognize that there's some areas of need there, and we have spent the year during our professional development looking at those areas of need and finding activities and lessons, and in some cases adding in some concepts to help better address the PA core standards. And as we implement our new textbooks, that certainly will help out tremendously. So our area of focus in 7th and 8th grade was looking at ratios and proportions, and which is actually a very challenging concept for kids. Adults too sometimes, and expressions and equations showed up in both 7th and 8th grade, so that's definitely something that we know that we need to focus some more on, and that can only help us as we move into Algebra 1 and continuing to work to help kids be successful in the Keystone exam. So that leads us into high school math, and this is the course sequence, and it looks like we have 5 different tracks, and we don't necessarily have 5 different tracks for students. Typically, the students coming from academic Math 8 would either have a choice to go into concepts of mathematics, concepts in mathematics, or Algebra 1. Most of our students coming out of, or accelerated Algebra 1. They can go to any of those 3 options. Most of our students either go into Algebra 1 or accelerated Algebra 1, but for those students who need a little bit more time with some pre-algebra concepts and need a little more foundation laid, we offer concepts in mathematics. So those are the 3 choices that kids have coming from academic Math 8. Those students coming from Honors Algebra 1 either go to Accelerated Algebra 2 or Honors Algebra 2.
I'm showing my age. What's analysis?
Analysis is Counselor Rock's name for pre-calculus.
Thank you.
Everyone asks that.
Yes.
Yes.
So something that like the nursing too. I know it includes like geometry and like trigonometry, but then like for the constant mathematics and Algebra 1, like the starting from those those 2 tracks, you only get to like geometry and like trigonometry like in 12th grade.
In 12th grade, right.
Which is when you would like take. You would be
taking that, correct. And we try to intersperse things along the way. Everybody learns at different paces, so some students that is the the pace that best fits their learning needs. And then there's other students who can move at a more rapid pace, and so we have a different track, a different pathway for them to get their math skills.
Just really cool. It seems that our math curriculum is aligned to like, well, standardized testing in some way, and like with like preparing for the SATs. Well, but then like if that's what we're doing, then like how would those students be prepared for like the geometry and trigonometry parts of?
I would say that again, we're teaching. Not all kids learn at the same pace, so we sometimes have to change how quickly we can introduce concepts to different students depending on their learning needs. So in that particular case, that is a pace that's appropriate for their learning of mathematics. And so when they go to take the SATs or the ACTs, we've been teaching them at the pace that's appropriate for them, and they do as well as they can do. They put forth their best effort.
We used to have, and this might be for Mary, but we used to have a division of Algebra 2 into A and B.
Yeah, we got rid of that.
Okay.
All students except for, we had maybe, district-wide, we had maybe 40 to 50 students in our concepts in mathematics class across the district. All other students take a full Algebra 1 course in either 8th grade or 9th grade. Every single student, there's no
Because of sports, so
We used to have a
parent with a
concept
problem.
1 and concepts 2 class, and also we use
Algebra
that
1 and
because
part-
part of what we're hearing from this young lady about where they would end up. So if you had 2 years of concepts, you're not getting your full Algebra 1 class until
Yeah,
11th grade.
and wasn't sports, I mean, that's
Well,
the parent I dealt
A
with,
and
was a
B
parent
was
who
a
had no
problem
idea and it
for
didn't count for
athletics.
NCAA.
Correct. Because it counted as 1 year. There was
Right,
2
and they
years of
took 2,
math,
and then they had the problem, right?
And there was some great trepidation to move to this new course sequence, and kids are being successful.
Okay, good.
They are being successful. I don't think that we've hurt students in this process of realigning our curriculum.
But if you take Algebra 1 in grade 9, you're pretty much tracked out of any AP courses.
AP statistics or AP computer science is available
Okay.
to you, yes, but yeah, you are tracked out of calculus.
Yep, okay. It's okay.
And for some students, that is the appropriate.
I'm not disagreeing.
But I think the addition of accelerated calculus, and the accelerated stat, that really added a lot, because some kids found themselves in a weird place in 12th grade, not really having, finding the appropriate course for them.
Right, and some students aren't ready for an AP class in 12th grade. They're just not. Or they don't.
Or in math.
In math, maybe they want to focus all their time in AP courses in other areas, and it's great that we have an opportunity to allow them to do that.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have talked. But I was saying, I also think the AP stats and the accelerated stats, when I was in school, you would have everybody took calc. I mean, that's where you want to get to. But stats is very desirable by kids and by
Yes.
colleges. So it's just something new. If you haven't been through that process, that the stat courses, unless you're going to be a major that needs calc, and even then statistics isn't almost everything, data analytics, everything we do in all freshmen. So at least from what I heard, the colleges really value statistics as much as calc.
Yes.
So it's not, they can take that,
No,
they're good.
that's why I said, I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
No, I'm just saying, because
But
that's.
there really are 2 tracks.
Okay. So noteworthy, in high school mathematics, we have started, when students started taking the Keystone exam and we saw our first year of Keystone data, we realized that we needed to change the instruction that we were offering students. And we have been running professional learning communities with Algebra 1 teachers to help come up with those formative assessments. And when we get to the slide with the data, when I have 4 minutes left to get to that, I keep getting time checks in my
It's important. It's important.
You'll see that we have made steady increase in our
So which
Keystone
teachers
scores.
are in that PLC?
It would be teachers that are teaching algebra. We focused on accelerated Algebra 1 and Algebra 1. On teachers that were teaching in those courses. We focus,
Your honors Algebra 1.
our honors Algebra 1 students are performing very well. So I'm gonna move on only because I wanna get to our math awards that some of our high school students have won. They participated in the OWL Olympiad contest sponsored by Temple University just recently, and North's teams came in, they had 2 teams, and they came in 2nd and 7th, and South was 7th and 12th. I think there might be a typo in there because I don't know how they both could be 7th, but. I'll call myself out.
That's statistically possible.
They could have tied, but I know that they didn't, so I won't pretend that they did. And they also participated in the Atlantic Pacific Math League contest. I didn't have the current scores yet for this year, so I can tell you that in the 2014-15 school year, North was 10th and South was 4th. They participate in the Math Leagues competition where North was 2nd in the county, South was 3rd. We had some students who, at South, who proposed an app in a competition, and they actually came in one of the top 20 teams. They had,
Math app or?
so
just
it
math
was a,
used?
and it's escaping me at this moment because my brain is racing. It wasn't necessarily it wasn't a math app, but it was students from the computer science
Right, that they did, right,
that
that
were
these
the
math
advisor
skills, yeah.
in that club. For the app challenge, students just kind of talked and picked it up themselves. The Moody's Mega Math Challenge, South had a 5-person team that was, Dan Lynch was the advisor on that, and they received honorable mention. So of the 1,084 papers submitted, only 8.3% of the teams were recognized, and as a team, they won a $1,000 scholarship for them to split among themselves.
Good for them. That's awesome.
We talked about AP, we have a lot of our students in AP courses. That number goes up and down in statistics.
But it's hard to fit in,
It is hard to
you
fit
know,
in.
because usually the kids that are taking stats drop a language. So you have to make a choice.
And the kids I know, calculus would have probably been too much of a stretch. And
And now we have
AP
accelerated.
stat, or accelerated stats,
Right.
it was a perfect fit. It
Right.
was challenging, it wasn't super easy for him, but it
Right.
gave him a place, so.
Right. So we do a great job with our AP scores. AB, calculus AB is the equivalent of 1 semester of college calculus. You can see that a large percentage of our students last year took that, the exam, and they did very well on it. Typically, most universities will accept a 3, it depends on the university, anywhere from a 3, 4, or 5, depending on what the university deems themselves to accept.
I mean,
But
we
most
see
places
enrollment-
take 4s and 5s.
Yeah, but we see participation in these AP courses much higher than some of the others because calculus is one of those things
So either
colleges.
outsource.
Well, but universally, colleges will take it. Like for my son, where he went undergrad, he had registered for all these AP courses before he knew what college he was going to. And then once we found out, no matter what he got, they weren't going to take his AP English. They weren't going to take his, I don't know, maybe it was Spanish or something. I don't remember, but the science and the math pretty much universally.
And our computer
Colleges do take
science, our computer science is like that also. A lot of colleges don't take our AP computer science credit. So students choose not to take that exam. But you can see that
Very
our,
proud of those BC numbers.
those are amazing.
You should be
They
very
are-
proud.
they are
Those BC
amazing.
numbers.
Those are absolutely amazing, and a credit to the students and the teachers that work so hard all year. And it, and honestly, it starts back in kindergarten with those kids building up those skills, and it culminates with, the top 92 kids in our graduating class last year did amazing. Statistics, you can see the statistics in computer science. I will let you know that for the one student from South, I didn't want to not report it because I didn't want it to look like South students don't take AP computer science, because they do. My daughter was one of them, and she is not the 5. She didn't take the exam, but they were bused over to North last year. This year, there are 3 sections of AP computer science at North and 1 section over at South. So it really has beefed up this year, and we're really trying
kids
to
are in
promote
the section?
women to take AP computer science, because it sets them apart.
How many kids are in a section?
I would say probably 20 to 25 would be, I mean, am I
Close
right
enough?
with that?
Yeah, that's a little
I
bit.
mean, it would-
I don't want to
Exactly.
that's close
Right.
enough.
Yeah. So, very quickly, I think I'm actually over my time, but Barry hasn't told me to stop yet, so I'll keep talking. You can see our middle school honors students do very well on our on the Keystone Algebra 1. We have definitely, if you look at the percentages as they go across, you can see that we have been steadily increasing our number of students who are proficient on the Keystone, and I attribute a lot of that to the work that we've done in our professional learning communities to give teachers time to unpack standards and really see, like, this is specifically what we need kids to know and be able to do, and these are the kinds of experiences we need to provide them so that they can be successful. So we're continuing to make progress. We're not satisfied yet.
Does that change how they teach or what they teach?
It changes a little bit of both. A little bit of both. There were things that were added, particularly to our Algebra 1 course, that weren't previously in there that we needed to add to our curriculum. But it also changed, the Keystone exam, as are the PSSA exams, are very problem-solving, critical thinking based, so we need to make sure that we're providing instruction that prepares kids to answer those questions.
So it's content slightly more delivery than it is practice around the tests.
Correct, it's
Well,
not,
Also, 12, 13, those kids knew that that test didn't really count, right?
right, and it was,
So,
yeah. But if you look at a typical Keystone question, there's a STEM part of the question that's like, it's this long. It's not solve for X.
Mhm.
There's a STEM to the problem that's this long, and then kids have to interpret information. And we're making sure that we're giving kids more and more opportunities to interpret instead of plug and chug.
That's good.
So there's a lot of talk around STEM. Do we ever look at our enrollment by, the sex of the child? A lot of discussion about like getting females more involved.
I have not, I know,
I mean, we wouldn't treat them any differently, and I don't wanna be.
I've never run the numbers to honestly answer your question. I know we did
Although
push.
the number of girls that participate with Renee on the STEM, the engineering piece has grown steadily over the last 3
Yes.
years, right?
That's what I actually think it
Yes.
would probably show, but I just wondered if it was something we had to report somewhere, so there's just been a lot in the media about it,
Correct.
obviously, and stuff like that, so I was just curious.
So that's it. I'm sorry, we did look at our results, and we're focusing, continue to focus on the problem solving and linear equations, interestingly, keep showing up for us. So that's kind of a somewhat long synopsis of our math program.
this was great, I mean, because it really just touched on so many of the key issues that we all talk about all the time.
It's terrific.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
We look forward to hearing
What
next
can we do
year
for
what
you?
the results.
What can we do for you?
What do you need?
What do I need?
You just bought your books, didn't you?
You did just buy me books, so I'm grateful. I need more books as we continue to work in our work through our honors curriculum. And I would love to have more elementary math specialists, if I, can ask.
You can ask, we need to know, we can't approve
I would love to have-
but we need to hear what we're not hearing, because you're not asking, because.
Because I know that it's not gonna be available. But I
Right,
can
well,
tell you that
No, I think that's a good ask, but I think what would be good to hear too is what's gonna be the impact.
the impact could be huge, because we could start having impacts the way our literacy specialists have remedial programs set out for students that clearly impact students' reading abilities. We don't have the manpower to do that. They have, 2 reading specialists in a building, and then some Title I that come in some buildings. We have a math specialist. So we can better impact.
Can we talk about potentially, and I know you're gonna say yes, well, obviously we can talk about, but is there any impact to asking for a volunteer, but it will require the math specialist at least to get us somebody else in the building, or is there no impact there? Do you really need?
We
The
use
volunteers.
Sage for,
Teachers do use Sage a lot.
but I mean.
Yeah, that's
do
what I was
something
thinking, like
that
a
for-
consistent, somebody who's willing to commit to once a week for a year, but they'd have to not report in, sounds bad, but like your math specialist would have to
So check
certainly.
in with them.
Yeah.
That is certainly something, I know classroom teachers will set that up, you know, I'll see volunteers out in the hallway helping kids with math facts and that kind of stuff, but we could look into something a little more formal.
We definitely need to think about, I believe, as a district, because of the budget situation, we're not even hearing some of the needs, but if kind of, and you know, you don't want to spend enormous amounts of time, because it certainly creates a wish list, right? But to Andy's point, like, if I could have 3 things, these are 3 things, and this is the impact those 3 things would do, and this is what they would cost, and then we're gonna have to juggle that with English and all the other.
Right.
I mean, if you think, just using the example of full day kindergarten, the discussion we went through there was an opportunity that we had that ended in an outcome based on the facts that we saw and a choice that we have to make. So it would be a great thing for us to have that forum to say, what are the things that you need us to invest in versus go through a budget cycle. This is what we got.
Right, I would be thrilled to
You're
put
getting a
more
lot of
thought than
data.
that quick off the top of my head.
That's what I'm saying, like,
No,
I think
no,
it would
it's
be
okay.
great, it'd be great to hear and see, and it can't be, you know, it can't be everything, but just maybe your top 3 even.
Okay.
And then is there any creative brainstorming we can do about ways to find pathways there that aren't traditional, if we can't do the traditional, here's the money to buy the books.
Be great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bravo.